Well, g'day, and welcome to the Choosing Your Uni National Virtual Expo. My name is Rob Malicki. I'm a host for this session on the University of Notre Dame, Australia. Before we kick off, just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I live and work. That's the Gadigal land of the Eora Nation here in Sydney. Before we get started, I'm going to tell you what's coming up in the next 20 minutes or so. We're going to be talking about the University of Notre Dame, its academic strengths, how it rates, and all sorts of other things that are relevant to whether or not you should choose this particular institution. And I'd like to just acknowledge those people who are joining me live for this session. If you've got any questions or comments as we go, please feel free to hit me up in the chat. You can do that on the Expo Hub, but also on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. All those comments will come through. If for some reason I can't get to those by the end of this session, all of those will be answered on the Choosing Your Uni Discord server. And so make sure you jump across there and we'll be able to get answers to your questions. And of course, if you are a parent and you're interested in asking questions, you can do so either here during the session or in the Facebook community as well. So we're going to be talking about Notre Dame. We're going to be finding out about its strengths. We're going to be talking about the hard data in terms of its student satisfaction and the like. And then we're also going to be talking about which institutions might you compare Notre Dame against when you're looking at a university. This expo has been made possible by Southern Cross University. They're our major presenting partner. And so I'd like to just play a short clip for you from SCU in recognition of the amazing work that they do and also in gratitude for them supporting this expo. Here's a word from SCU. Well, here's something that most people don't know. The University of Notre Dame has a graduate employment rate of 86.5%. That's higher than the University of Sydney, higher than Melbourne. In fact, it's higher than every single university in the Group of Eight. The Group of Eight are Australia's famous, prestigious, research-intensive universities. And yet, a small, private Catholic university is beating them all on jobs. That should make you curious. But let me save you some time because this university isn't for everyone. And first and foremost, it's probably not the university for you if you're looking for a massive institution in the heart of a city centre with 50,000 students and a really pumping on-campus vibe. This place, in fact, has 11,500 students split across 3 campuses. The good thing is that you'll know the people. Your lecturers will most likely know you by name, but you know what, for some people maybe that sounds a little bit suffocating and they want to be in a big anonymous place. So you've got to know yourself. It's also probably not the place for you if you want to avoid any engagement with big questions. And what I mean by that are things like ethics, philosophy, and meaning. Every undergraduate at Notre Dame takes core units in philosophy, theology, and ethics, no matter what degree that they are studying. So whilst you don't have to be Catholic to study at Notre Dame, in fact, you don't have to be religious at all, you do have to engage with that material. So if that feels like a bit of a waste of time for you, fair enough. You should probably look elsewhere. I guess lastly, if you want a university that really leads with its global ranking and has one of those big prestigious brands, this might not be for you either. Notre Dame's global ranking is modest. Its strength happens from what's inside the classroom and what happens after graduation. Oh, you're still here. Well, that's good news, because if you are, this may be the institution for you, and we're going to dive into all of the details. But before we do that, maybe what we'll do is just hear from some students who studied at the University of Notre Dame, and then I'll be right back with more information. What do you guys like about studying here?
That's a good question. Well, we enjoy the content. That's why we've been here so long.
Yeah.
So the degree itself is good.
How far through are you?
Yeah, third year.
Oh, okay, cool. So you're well and truly in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so,
I mean, some of the electives they offered are pretty cool as well.
and the lectures, it's a bit more personalised. You know, the way it's taught. They do a lot of 3-hour seminars, so you get to really interact with the content and the lecturers and the people around you, instead of just being lectured at and just told this is what's happening.
Yeah, asking questions and that sort of stuff. There's always a lot of opportunities to, get very personalised answers if you're struggling with something.
Much more conducive to actually learning the content. So that's what I enjoy about it.
Okay, well, here are 3 things that for me really define the University of Notre Dame, Australia. The first is its teaching. It's a teaching university that really takes teaching seriously. This place isn't just a research factory where your first year lecture has 800 people in it and you're never going to have a chance to meet the professor. Notre Dame consistently scores well on teaching quality and learner engagement in the national surveys, and we're going to dive into those details. The class sizes are small, the staff to student ratio is tight, and when students rate their experience, they rate it high. This isn't marketing spin, this is actually what shows up in the independent data collected by the quality indicators for learning and teaching surveys, and we're going to talk about those a little bit later in the session. Secondly, and I really think this is an interesting one that deserves more attention, is the core curriculum, which is genuinely unusual. Every undergraduate, whether you're studying nursing or business or law or education, everyone takes these units in philosophy, theology, and ethics. Now, I know some of you have just recoiled and been like, oh no, that's not me. And that's okay. But think about it this way. In your life, you're going to have to spend time and you're going to have to spend your career making decisions that affect other people. Having that background, having a framework for thinking about right and wrong and about what matters and why is not just a nice extra. It's actually a competitive advantage. And employers tell us that they want graduates who can think critically and communicate clearly. This, in my opinion, is a great way to actually build that. And before anyone worries, this isn't Sunday school. You don't need to be Catholic. Roughly a third of Notre Dame students aren't Catholic at all. And the university explicitly says that it welcomes students of all faiths or none. What the core curriculum is about is intellectual engagement with big ideas. It's not about trying to convert you to a religion. Thirdly, this institution is really about professional preparation. Education students do about 160 days of in-school placement, roughly double the minimum number. Nursing and medical students are embedded in hospitals from early in their degrees, and also, particularly in nursing, do an incredible number of additional clinical placement hours as part of their degree. Law students use a dedicated moot court. Business students do internships. The model is learn the theory, then go and practice it in real workplaces. Then come back and reflect on what you've learned. And this cycle is basically baked into almost every degree. Now, if you're interested in how support for uni study works, we've done a great session with the Australian Government on support for university studies, and you can find that in the session catalogue, which is down in the session description below. Now, one more thing that I think is worth flagging about Notre Dame, it has campuses in Fremantle in Western Australia, Broome in the far north of Western Australia, and in Sydney in New South Wales. That's a genuinely unusual spread. It's the only Australian university with major campuses on both coasts. CQ University, in fact, has campuses in every state. However, this is talking about major campuses on both coasts. So if you want to start your uni degree in Perth and then do part of it in Sydney or vice versa, that's actually a real option, and that's pretty unique. Let's take a little pause and just have a fun fact thanks to Southern Cross University.
I got my first grade at uni and I just laughed out loud. It wasn't just a pass, I actually got a high distinction, and I'd always done terrible at school. I did the PSP course at SEU, which gave me like the foundations of what you need to be able to study at uni, and I didn't fail that, got good grades, so I was like, hey, we'll keep going. Studied a bachelor in psych, did all right, so I kept going and got into honours, and now I'm writing a thesis. Getting that first grade was the first time that I felt like I can actually do this, and it has led me to get to where I am now, and I'm really grateful of it.
Since 2024, Notre Dame University, University of Notre Dame, has been organised into 3 national faculties. There's the Faculty of Arts, Sciences, Law and Business, which covers, well, basically what it says on the cover. You've got Humanities, Social Sciences, Commerce, Legal Studies and Science. We then have the Faculty of Education, Philosophy and Theology, which handles teacher training, alongside the university's signature philosophy and theology programs. And finally, we have the Faculty of Medicine, Nursing, Midwifery and Health Sciences. And that runs all of those professional health degrees supported by clinical schools and hospital partnerships across multiple states. So the standout programs are the professional ones. Education is an absolute powerhouse, and Notre Dame's teacher education degrees have long been rated incredibly highly by schools and education systems, particularly Catholic schools, but not exclusively. The extended practicum, which I mentioned earlier, 160 days in schools, means graduates walk into their first teaching job with significantly more teaching experience than their peers. The Good Unis Guide gives Notre Dame 5 stars for learner engagement and skills development in education. So it's an area where the university utterly excels. Nursing and midwifery are similarly strong. Students are placed in hospitals and clinical settings from really early on in their degrees, and the employment outcomes for these graduates reflects that. If you're thinking about a career in health, Notre Dame's clinical placement network, spanning hospitals in Perth and Sydney and regional areas, is genuinely an asset. Employers love the skills that Notre Dame graduates walk away with. Now, medicine is worth a separate mention. Of course, Notre Dame offers a Doctor of Medicine, which is a graduate entry program, meaning you complete an undergraduate degree first, and then apply for the 4-year medical degree. The medical school operates clinical schools based at major teaching hospitals, and it has a particular focus on training doctors for regional, rural, and remote communities. So that Broome campus that I mentioned up in far northwest Western Australia, it's not just for show, it's connected to a real commitment to healthcare in the communities that honestly are just desperately needing that support. Law is smaller at Notre Dame, but it's serious. And it was the recently upgraded Craven Law Centre in Fremantle includes a moot court, and the program integrates practical skills along doctrinal study. On the research side, the University of Notre Dame is certainly not trying to compete with the big research-intensive universities on scale. Instead, it's focusing on 3 research institutions to anchor its research effort. There's the Institute for Ethics and Society, which is in Sydney, and that does work in moral philosophy, bioethics, and the intersection of religion and public life. Is it for everyone? No. But for the people for whom it's relevant, it's really a leading institution. The Institute for Health Research in Fremantle focuses on population health, ageing and clinical outcomes. And the Nulungu Research Institute in Broome specialises in Indigenous studies and community-based research, working with Aboriginal communities on education, health and cultural issues. And if you're interested in that intersection between research and community impact, Nulungu is doing some of the most meaningful work in Australian higher education. I really, really rate it. Now, a couple of developments to be aware of. Notre Dame is expanding into Western Sydney and it's signed a memorandum of understanding with Liverpool City Council to build a presence in Liverpool's education precinct. They're also developing new programs in areas like computer science and STEM. And that's different because this is a university that's been heavily weighted towards humanities, health and education, and it's starting to broaden out. The Fremantle campus itself has had a major upgrade, and the student hub redevelopment has brought together the library, law facilities, courtyard spaces and student services into a connected precinct within those beautiful West End buildings. If you haven't seen Fremantle's West End, it's got these wonderful sandstone buildings. It's like warehouse style, tree-lined streets. It's close to the ocean. It's genuinely an amazing place to live and study. It's got the cafe culture. I love Fremantle to bits. Once again, if you're interested in all of these sessions and any of the keynotes that we're delivering as part of the Expo, check out the session catalogue down below. And one of the areas that I'm really passionate about is around how AI is impacting the workforce and how it's impacting your studies. We've got dedicated sessions on AI and how these things are unfolding, thanks to the University of New England, and you can find those in the session catalogue too. Okay. In a moment, I'm going to walk you through Notre Dame's actual performance data, student satisfaction, employment, salary and rankings. And there's a specific number in there that might surprise you because it tells you something about what kind of students come here and, most importantly, what happens when they leave. The gap between Notre Dame's global ranking and its employment outcomes is one of the biggest in the country, and that gap tells a story. So let's dive into that data. And it's really important to pay attention to this because these numbers tell such an interesting story. On national student satisfaction, Notre Dame sits at 78%. That's measured by the quality indicators for learning and teaching, national level survey, independent data that you can really trust. We've got a whole session on Quilt and the Compare Ed website as part of the virtual expo. So whilst 78% is above the national average, it's certainly not the highest in the country, which is Bond University and the University of Divinity, both small private organisations that are leading at around 88-89%. However, it's competitive and it's certainly higher than a lot of the big name universities like Melbourne Uni, 73% and Sydney at 71.7%. So, for a university of this size, that satisfaction score reflects something that's real going on about how students enjoy their experience at this place. Teaching quality tracks with that. The Good Unis Guide gives Notre Dame 5 stars for learner engagement and skills development, and that's about small classes, accessible staff, extended practicum. This model really works. But graduate employment is where the University of Notre Dame absolutely excels. And as we're talking about at the top, that headline figure of 86.5% of graduates in full-time work is quite incredible. Let me put that in context. The national average hovers around the mid to high 70s. Uni of Melbourne, Australia's #1 ranked university, comes in at 67.7%. University of New South Wales, ranked 20th in the world, sits at 81.3%. Uni of Notre Dame, Australia, beats both of those by a clear margin. And for me, the reason is straightforward. This university trains people for specific professions, and it does it incredibly well. We're talking about teachers, nurses, doctors, allied health workers. These are jobs that are incredibly in demand, and where the teaching is done in such a way that you have skills that are different and perhaps even above, in some cases, graduates of other universities. The median starting salary is $70,000. It's not the highest, it's right on the national average. And universities with large engineering, mining cohorts tend to lead on salary, or agriculture, the regional universities. But this is a solid response, and Notre Dame graduates are doing okay. Let's have a quick look at the international rankings, the global rankings, and this doesn't look that great, I must admit. Notre Dame sits in the 800 to 1000th band in the QS global rankings, in the Times Higher Education rankings, which actually ranks at 37th in Australia out of about 40 universities. And it's not even listed in the main QS University World Rankings. These are really not flattering positions. But here's what those rankings actually measure. They're really heavily weighted towards academic research. They're weighted towards how many times that research has been cited, and also international reputation. So, frankly, a university that's small, it's teaching focused, it's got 11,500 students, it's never going to get to the top of those lists. But I would say that Notre Dame performs better than many of those top ranking institutions on arguably some of the measures that count most. And that's things like how students are experiencing their course and what they get out of those degrees at the end. Now, you can compare all of your options side by side on the Choosing Your Uni platform. Details down below. It's a free, independent platform, takes under a minute to join, and it allows you to literally ask questions about anything important to you. And the answers are based on your interests, goals, and preferences, not based on who spends the most money on marketing. So if you want to explore the numbers and be guided towards the options that suit you best, the Choosing Your Uni platform is literally the best place for you to go and do so. Okay, let's now think about who you might also look at in terms of an institution if you're interested in the University of Notre Dame. And of course, first and foremost, if you are in Perth and you're looking at Fremantle, then Curtin University is right there, as is Murdoch University. But let's look at Curtin, because Curtin scores 80.9% on graduate employment, which is still lower than Notre Dame's 86.5%. The student experience is very different. Curtin has over 50,000 students. So if you want that scale, that breadth, then Curtin might offer you a different type of experience. If you're looking for that intimacy in the mission, then Notre Dame makes a more logical choice. If you're looking at Sydney, then you've got literally a half a dozen options, but the comparison that matters the most is probably the Australian Catholic University. In terms of characteristics, it's an obvious comparison. It's also a Catholic institution that's strong in education and nursing, and also very much focused on professional preparation. ACU is bigger, it's about 30,000 students, and it has more presence in more places: Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Canberra. Its employment rate is also excellent, 82.7%, which is below Notre Dame, but not very much. Notre Dame possibly is slightly ahead in terms of being more intimate, in terms of campus feel, and having that core curriculum. However, what I really love about ACU is the sort of slightly greater scale. It has a number of campuses around Sydney that tend to be larger than Notre Dame and tend to have also that community engaged feel as well. I'd highly recommend you check out the ACU session as part of this National Virtual Expo, and you will find that down below. Now, I love to throw in a like completely out of the box suggestion. And for me, the out of the box suggestion would be Bond University on the Gold Coast. In terms of its size, it's smaller than University of Notre Dame, and Bond isn't Catholic, and it's not technically mission driven, although it is a not-for-profit institution, but it is also small and private, and it prioritises that teaching over research in a big way. Bond delivers an incredibly personal student experience, and it scores highest on student satisfaction at 88.3. So if what appeals to you about Notre Dame is that sort of small size, the personal attention, and the focus on your experience as a student, but maybe you're less drawn to that Catholic identity, maybe you want to live in a warmer place like the Gold Coast rather than Sydney, Bond is definitely worth a look. So go and watch those sessions, details in the session catalogue, and you can go and help look and see if those belong on your shortlist or not. Now, I'm nearly out of time, but I will just quickly go to a couple of questions that came in advance. I won't be able to get to the questions that have come in via the chat, I'm afraid, but they will be in the Choosing Your Uni Discord. So I'll be answering those really soon. But here's one. Here we go. Notre Dame's Fremantle campus is tiny compared to other universities. Does that limit the number of courses and electives available? Yes. The short answer is yes. This is not an enormous institution, and you won't find some disciplines like engineering or pure sciences there. However, what you do find there, the subjects are taught incredibly well. So if you're looking at health sciences and education and law and business, that small size means that you're going to have a more personal experience, and that's something that the big universities struggle to match. Here's another one that came in that's relevant to this conversation, and that's, does it matter if a uni is public or private? In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. With public and private unis in Australia, they're still regulated by the same standards bodies, which means your degree is equally legitimate either way. The real differences are in things like the size, obviously the fees and the cost, the culture, and the support services. So you need to judge each uni on its merits rather than the public versus private label. Private universities are able to charge what they like, essentially. And so, yes, it's going to be more expensive going to a private institution. You can still access Australian government support through fee help for most of those private institutions, including Bond and Notre Dame. But you will have a higher debt there. For some people, that doesn't matter if you've got the bank of mum and dad behind you, or if those institutions really appeal to you. And of course, some of the other differences is if you're looking to go to a major campus, like with lots more opportunities, a bigger space, and a broader spread of degrees, then the public universities tend to offer more opportunities in that space. That's all we've got time for as part of this conversation on the University of Notre Dame. You can watch my full reviews of both the Sydney and Fremantle campuses of the University of Notre Dame Australia on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/choosingyouruni. And hope to see you at another session during this virtual expo. Thank you for your time. Have yourself a great day. I'm Rob Malicki. Well, I hope you got something out of this session. And if you have any questions at all, you can head to choosingyouruni.com and ask Lumen. Lumen is your AI guide who knows about every university, every pathway, every option that we've talked about throughout this virtual expo. And Lumen is available to talk to you 24/7. So it's ready when you are.